Rigsters here, back with a DCS video. Today I'm going to do the cold start with the F18. Now let's get started. So with the F18, it's actually not hard to start, so just get right into it. The battery is flipped up, arm the ejection seat, switch on the APU, wait for that to crank. Once it grows green, just have to wait a moment. Press right shift home on the US standard keyboard, and then you'll see a button called ENG crank. Right click that to the right. And if you look at your engine gauge right here, it increases RPM. While that's spooling up, you need oxygen so your pilot doesn't die of oxygen deprivation. You can switch that to on by left clicking on that in the bottom left corner hip. And then while this engine's also spooling up, we want the left and right panels. They're called left and right MFDs for short. So for left MFD, since it's daytime, right click that to day. Right MFD, right click to day. Now that the right engine is stabilized between 64 to 65 RPM, hit right Alt Home on the US English Standard keyboard to move the left throttle to idle. And back at the APU, left click the ENG crank to start the left engine. And while that's going, you can also hit left control C once to close the canopy. You can remove the virtual joystick by pressing backspace so you can see the screen better. Move this to BRT by either using the mouse wheel or left click drag. Either one works. It'll take a while for it to boot up there. The radar warning receiver, ARL 67. Press that on. EMC, either on standby or record. I usually prefer record. Spencer bypass, which is right here. Let's do that there. Right click it all the way up and it'll be on. That way when you drop chaff and flares, it will be manually deployable. Now we need what to modify the UFC, which is the central cockpit with all these numbers. So to turn on the HUD that's in front of your nose, there's a button below the AP and IFF. Just roll that all the way up to BRT in the daytime, and there you go, you've got your nose. To turn on the IFF, which is for identification friend and foe, click on IFF once, and then the button to the right here which says on/off, click on that. And then you want the data link on, you have to do this twice. So if you see this button right here that says D/L, click that once, and then you press on/off once, then you press D/L again, and press on again. So once you have both of those on, by default, you'll have data link, which means planes from AWACS or other 4th generation NATO fighters or so can transmit data that they see to you. So we're almost there. Next thing we want to do is to align the INS, which is on your bottom right hip right over here. You right click this knob since we're on the ground, not on a carrier. You right click this twice to GND. And then on the bottom panel, this is the HSI home screen where it's defaulted located. Press mode twice so you can see this better. And on the bottom here, next to sensors and menu, click on stored heading. And in a couple seconds, it will start the 90-second alignment, so you don't have to wait about 4 to 5 minutes for it to align. While that's spinning its wheels, you can also optionally, under the volume knob behind the throttle, You can either use the mouse wheel or left click drag the WPN and RWR to adjust the volume. I recommend the RWR to be slightly less loud and the WPN to be like in the middle or a little less than half. The WPN is your sidewinder tone when you Firefox use. RWR is your radar warning receiver. That's when it goes dee-doo-doo, all those noises. You kind of want to turn it down a little bit, but you still want to hear it. Now, an important thing to also do is to reset your FCS. Left click, hold that. That's your flight control system. Has to be done every cold start. Run trim is your takeoff for ground starts. You want to centralize the trim by holding this knob for about 2 seconds and let go. And there you go. Now your trim in FCS is good. The INS is almost aligned here. You can see this qual and time. You want to wait till qual is at 0.5 and it flashes or says OK. So you want to go down to the bottom right hip. Under sensor, right click this knob to IFA. Most 90% of the time you want IFA. IFA is better than nav because it will self-correct INS drift, and that automates the process so you don't have to worry about your GPS going astray. Some servers may require nav because they simulate an older time period. For your radar, if you don't care about ground crew or milsim realism, just right click this knob to OPR and it will turn on the radar. It is weight on wheels, so technically it doesn't really truly turn on, but if you're lazy or don't care, just switch it to OPR. If you have a pod, such as when you go to rearm and refuel, the lightning or app flare, and that's mounted on your plane, either in the center for your lightning pod or on the side for your app flare. I recommend app flare personally. You flip this up from standby to on, and if you're using laser guided bombs, once you're airborne, you switch up LST NF flare, and this LT/R arms the laser. This preps the laser and is ready. This arms it. This always will switch to safe when you're dropping laser guided bombs, either in pairs or single. And last thing to do is to turn on your helmet or HMD. This will show here. Now, normally if you're just doing air to air, this would be sufficient enough, but you can make this a little bit better. If you go to the right MFD and you press the menu button twice, you'll see now that you turn on your HMD, there's this tab called HMD. Click on that. Click on Align. Move your head tracking, webcam, or whatever VR system you use. Put the two crosses right here into the middle as best as possible. You want to use your key binding of cage, uncage. You hold it. It says align. It says on OK. Let go. Once you let go, you can use cage, uncage. So if you see these two crosses here that are lined up with the center T, this is how you adjust it. If you need to adjust them, you use your TDC or Target Designate Control slew. If you press and hold it, I'm just pressing and hold it to demonstrate if it's offset. So this is like look like if your roll is offset. And if I press cage uncage to DXY, this is when it looks like offset if you have a misalignment or weren't able to hold it steady enough. Once that is done, you press throttle designate control down, and there you go. And you can verify on your right MFD that the line is no longer boxed. Last thing to do for a basic startup with no weapons preset is your backup cage. If you left click hold that and you scroll the mouse wheel after letting go of the left mouse button, you put it either just in the center or just a smidge below the line. I think ideally you want it on the line. Don't quote me on that because I honestly don't know, but I do know that at least needs to be pretty close to that. Alright, and then last two things you want to do before, if you want to just fly and take off practice, set your flaps on this panel here to half or key bind it to it. Optionally turn on your taxi lights when you're on the ground. It's not always required, but it is recommended. And release the parking brakes by clicking the left clicking on the emergency handle. That is your parking brakes. If you hit right control enter, you can see that when I left click and drag the mouse wheel towards me, it locks it, and then when I let go, the 2 white bars disappear. And then you just throttle up, just like that. And you just turn the plane with your rudder. It has no wheel steer by default on. You can do high gain mode by hitting NWS/undesignate when you're going slow. You can start doing a disco or spin me right round baby kind of mood. It's a great party trick this plane has. Very useful in CVs or trying to get into a tight spot. And then if you want to stop the plane, of course, just hit wheel brakes on. So there you have it. That is a very basic F18 startup with no weapons to configure. On a future video, I'll do a more featured setup with more complex weapons and whatever else the community would like to see. This is a start of the F18 tutorial series that I'm kind of trying to make short and succinct and try to get them ideally under 25 minutes. This is Rigsters Journey, signing off.